Welcome back to Modern Indian History video series from Clarity of Concept. In previous video, we studied the rise of Marathas and decisive third battle of Panipat. As we learnt in previous video, the period from 1746 to 1764 was very crucial in history of the Indian subcontinent. In this period, three different struggles were ongoing in three different parts of the country. In West and Northern India, Marathas fight with Ahmad Shah Abdali. This was covered in previous video. In South India, English and French rivalry results in three Carnatic Wars. We are studying it in this video. In Eastern India, British fight with local Indian rulers in Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar. That shall be covered in next video. Watch the playlist for all videos in an ordered manner. Join our Telegram channel and Instagram page. Our website clarityofconcept.com has notes and quizzes on all our videos. All links are given below. Let us continue on Carnatic Wars that occur in South India. In 1740, a succession crisis erupted in Europe when the Austrian king died without a male heir. Different European powers supported rival claimants, leading to the War of Austrian Succession. This conflict soon spread beyond Europe. By 1744, it reached India, where the British and French East India Companies found themselves on opposing sides. In 1746, the French, led by Joseph Francois Dupleix, who was the ambitious Governor General in Pondicherry, saw the European War as an opportunity to weaken British influence in India. Dupleix aimed to expand French dominance through both diplomacy and military force. Seizing the moment, the French launched an attack on Madras and captured it in September 1746. The British, caught off guard, surrendered the city without much resistance, which was a significant victory for the French. After capturing Madras in September 1746, Dupleix aimed to strengthen his hold over the region. However, his success alarmed the Nawab of Eyre Coote, Anwaruddin Muhammad Khan, who had initially stayed neutral. Concerned about growing French influence, Anwaruddin decided to support the British in an effort to recapture Madras. In response, Dupleix quickly mobilized his forces. In October 1746, the Nawab sent an army of 10,000 troops to confront the French. Despite being heavily outnumbered, a small French force of just 300 soldiers, including Indian sepoys trained in European tactics, held their ground on the banks of the Adyar River. In the ensuing Battle of Adyar, the disciplined French troops decisively defeated the Nawab's much larger army. According to Shekhar Bandopadhyaya in Plassey to Partition, the victory at Adyar showcased the effectiveness of combining European military training with Indian sepoys, a strategy that both the British and French would soon rely upon extensively. Shekhar Bandopadhyaya continues in his book, "The victory at Adyar was a turning point, proving how Indian sepoys, when trained in European warfare, could be as effective as any European battalion." The French, under Dupleix, had realized early on the value of recruiting and training Indian troops, which gave them an advantage in battles like Adyar. As the conflict dragged on, both sides started to feel the financial strain of sustaining their military efforts. The French faced challenges due to insufficient support from their government back home. Dupleix struggled to secure enough funds to maintain his forces, which eventually hampered French operations. Meanwhile, the British, with better access to local financial networks and support from Indian merchants, managed to stabilize their position despite initial setbacks. The war came to an end in 1748 with the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, which concluded the European conflict. Under the treaty, Madras was returned to the British, and the French retained control of their trading posts like Pondicherry. However, the underlying tensions remained unresolved, setting the stage for the Second Carnatic War. The Second Carnatic War began in 1749 and was driven by local political disputes in South India. The British and French East India Companies intervened in succession disputes in the Carnatic region and Hyderabad, turning regional conflicts into another struggle for dominance. In the early 1740s, the Carnatic was ruled by Nawab Anwaruddin Muhammad Khan. However, rival claimants like Chanda Sahib, backed by the French, aimed to overthrow him. In Hyderabad, the Nizam's throne was contested after the death of Nizam ul Mulk Asaf Jah I in 1748. The French supported Muzaffar Jung, while the British supported his rival. In 1749, with French support, Chanda Sahib defeated and killed Anwaruddin Muhammad Khan at the Battle of Ambur. After this victory, Chanda Sahib declared himself the Nawab of Eyre Coote. To consolidate his power, he sought to eliminate British influence by attacking their stronghold. The fortress of Trichinopoly, controlled by the British, was the last significant British stronghold in the region. Muhammad Ali, the son of the slain Anwaruddin, had taken refuge there. Chanda Sahib, with French assistance, laid siege to Trichinopoly. The British forces were cornered, struggling to break the siege and protect their ally. The French, by now, had expanded their use of Indian sepoys significantly. Both sides recognized that training local soldiers in European tactics was crucial. According to Bandopadhyaya in Placid to Partition, while the French were early adopters of sepoy training, the British soon mastered the art, integrating sepoys seamlessly into their military, thereby securing a decisive edge. The French initially had the upper hand in this approach, but were gradually matched by the British, who excelled at integrating sepoys into their command structure. As Chanda Sahib and the French focused on capturing Trichinopoly, the British, realizing they were at a critical juncture, devised a bold strategy. In 1751, Robert Clive, a young military officer with limited formal military training but exceptional tactical skill, led a surprise attack on the French-held fort of Eyre Coote. Clive's decision to attack Eyre Coote was a calculated move to force the French to reconsider their siege of Trichinopoly. The unexpected assault on Eyre Coote threatened the French position, compelling them to divert troops away from Trichinopoly to defend Eyre Coote. This strategic diversion successfully relieved the pressure on Trichinopoly, allowing the British and their ally Muhammad Ali to hold out. Clive's capture of Eyre Coote not only disrupted the French plans but also became legendary for its audacity. It showcased Clive's ability to use psychological tactics and diversionary strategies. As the war dragged on, both the British and French were stretched thin financially. The French, constrained by limited support from Paris, struggled to pay their soldiers. Meanwhile, the British, with access to funds through alliances with Indian merchants, managed to maintain their forces. Both sides relied increasingly on Indian sepoys, but the British were more effective at ensuring their loyalty and discipline, which gave them an edge. By 1754, the financial conditions have worsened. The French, led by Dupleix, had initially gained some ground, but maintaining their forces became difficult without enough support from Paris. The French government, already stretched thin due to its commitments in Europe, grew frustrated with the costly battles in India. As a result, the French decided it was time to pause the fighting. In 1754, the Treaty of Pondicherry was signed, which restored all territories to their pre-war owners. This agreement temporarily ended the fighting but did not resolve the deeper tensions between the two colonial powers. Both sides were simply buying time, knowing that the struggle for dominance was far from over. By this point, Dupleix had become a controversial figure. Though he had ambitious plans to expand French influence, his actions were seen as reckless by officials back in France. Frustrated by the financial strain and lack of results, the French government decided to recall Dupleix in 1754. Once celebrated as a skilled diplomat and strategist, Dupleix returned to France disgraced and was soon forgotten. The Third Carnatic War began in 1756 as part of the larger global conflict known as the 7 Years' War. By this time, tensions between the British and French in India had once again reached a breaking point. The British, after gaining the upper hand in the Second Carnatic War, had grown stronger, while the French struggled with limited resources and internal disagreements. Initially, the French forces in India, under commanders like Charles Godeau, tried to hold their ground. However, despite some early skirmishes, the French struggled to gain significant victories against the increasingly powerful British East India Company. At the same time, the British had gained a crucial advantage through their victory at the Battle of Plassey in 1757, where Robert Clive secured control over Bengal, providing a vast financial boost. The British, with strongholds like Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras, had access to greater resources, enabling them to maintain well funded forces. The French, with only Pondicherry as their primary base, could not match the British in resources. French resources were stretched thin and their morale was low. Recognizing the need for stronger leadership, the French government made a bold decision. In 1758, they sent Count de Lally, a seasoned French soldier, to turn the tide against the British. Lally was a battle hardened veteran with a reputation for being fierce and unrelenting. He was known for his fiery temper and strict discipline, which earned him the respect and fear of his troops. The French government, desperate to reclaim their position in India after the setbacks under Dupleix, believed that Lally's no-nonsense approach could turn things around. However, they underestimated the challenges Lally would face, including a lack of resources, dwindling local support, and the growing strength of the British under commanders like Robert Clive and Eyre Coote. Lally's aggressive nature was evident from the moment he landed in India in 1758. Frustrated with the complacency of the French troops and their allies, he once famously said, "We are not here to trade, but to conquer." His harsh methods, however, quickly made him unpopular. It is said that when local merchants refused to supply his troops, Lally ordered them to be looted, which alienated potential allies and made it harder for him to secure local support. After his arrival in 1758, he immediately set about trying to reclaim French dominance. At first, he had some early successes, such as capturing the fort of Saint David near Cuddalore. However, Lally soon found himself facing severe challenges. The French were running low on funds, and support from Paris was slow to arrive. To make matters worse, Lally's harsh tactics, like looting local merchants in Pondicherry, alienated the very allies he needed to secure resources. By 1759, the tide began to turn against the French. Lally's attempts to besiege Madras were unsuccessful, as the British, led by Eyre Coote, were better supplied and better supported by local allies. The lack of reinforcements and supplies crippled the French efforts, and Lally's frustration only grew. Desperate to secure a decisive victory, he decided to risk everything in one final push to defeat the British at Wandiwash in early 1760. He believed that defeating the British at Wandiwash could turn everything around. But Lally was known for being impatient and often acted without fully planning. When Lally led his troops to Wandiwash, he was eager to strike quickly. However, his artillery was delayed. Ignoring his officers' advice to wait, Lally ordered his soldiers to charge straight at the British. He thought this surprise attack would win them the battle. But the British commander, Sir Eyre Coote, was ready. The British held their ground and used their cannons to push back the French attack. During the fight, Several French officers were captured, and Lally's troops began to lose confidence. Realizing his mistake, Lally tried to rally his men, but it was too late. The French were defeated, and this loss ended their hopes in India. After losing at Vandivash, the French lost control of Pondicherry too. In 1761, Pondicherry fell to the British after a long siege that left the French forces starving and exhausted. The capture marked the end of major French resistance in India. In 1761, after the fall of Pondicherry, Lally was recalled to France in disgrace, accused of failing to defend French interests in India. When Lally returned to France, he was blamed for the defeat. The French government put him on trial, saying it was all his fault. In 1766, he was executed. Just before his death, Lally cried out, "I die as a martyr fighting for India." But sadly, he believed that he had been abandoned by his own people. Following the decisive victory at Vandivash, the conflict became minimal. The Treaty of Paris in 1763 formally ended the war. This also ended the Third Carnatic War. The French were allowed to keep their trading posts in India but with strict conditions. They were permitted to retain control over their trading posts in Pondicherry, Mahe, Karaikal, Yanam, and Chandernagore. However, the French were not allowed to fortify these posts or maintain any military presence, effectively ending their political ambitions in India. The British emerged as dominant colonial power, using their financial resources and military strategies to expand their control over India, laying the foundation for the British Raj. That's all about this video. Next video covers Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar. Like the video and subscribe to our channel Clarity of Concept. Watch Modern Indian History playlist for all videos in the series. All links are given below.